I am so excited to welcome the Brooke Baldwin onto Culture Changers. Welcome, Brooke. Finally.
It is so good to be here. Thank you so much, Allison. Nice to meet you.
It is so good to meet you. I feel like your voice at this moment, I am a subscriber to your Substack Unraveling and have followed your career when you were on CNN, and then the ceremonious exit from that.
Yeah.
And, you have this incredible arc that I'm really eager to kind of dig into your perspective on the news. But even more timely, we learned today that your previous co-partner, Don Lemon, has been arrested.
Can I
What
go
the
off on
fuck?
that? I'm gonna
Yeah.
thank you. I'm so glad you dropped the first F-bomb. Like, I'm fucking furious to have the federal government arrest not just Don, two journalists, Georgia Ford and Don Lemon, two journalists for doing their jobs. This is a direct attack on the First Amendment. This is a direct attack on the Constitution. And let me just, for people who are coming in and they're like, what's happening? So Don went to Minnesota. Don, who I knew and loved for years and years. I was just on his show on New Year's Eve when he was down in New Orleans. Don left CNN also, became this independent journalist. He is like crushing life. Don is living Don's best life, with the exception of what has happened in the last 24 hours, because he's able to be and say and do whatever the fuck Don Lemon wants to do. And it's been no secret that how Don has felt and used his voice about this particular White House, and has for some time. But he went to Minnesota to go cover a multitude of things, one of which was this church service that was led by this pastor affiliated with ICE. And so he, I'm sure, had found out through some demonstrators that they were going to go essentially break up this worship service. That was their protest. And so Don wasn't protesting. Don was being a journalist and covering the protesters. Don, if you go to his YouTube or his TikTok, you can watch his interview with the pastor. You can watch his interviews with the protesters. You can watch his interview with folks who are in that worship service, trying to get this, like, as any good journalist does, a 360-degree view. And to have him arrested, Allison, as a journalist, that is like reprehensible. That is criminal. If the federal government, two things, it could have a chilling effect on journalists, because it essentially says to journalists, hey, federal government, like, watch what you say, watch how you cover us, because we could come for you too.
Yeah.
And also, if you criminalize journalism, that is not law and order. That is rotting our democracy. And the last thing I'll say about this, and then I'm like, whew, I'm fired up today, is, President Trump just this week said he was going to de-escalate, what was going on in Minnesota. Is this de-escalation?
Bullshit. And then he distracted by releasing the Epstein files. God knows if they're
Look over here.
redacted.
Look over here.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm furious.
It is even, like having your head on a swivel. And I actually saw that New Year's Eve special where he had invited you on, and that was what was like, ding, I need to talk to Brooke. Because you had said, I think I'm ready to get back in as a journalist. Tell me, what would that even look like today? What would that look like?
I feel like, and I wrote about why I left CNN in a very forward, very hard, vulnerable way in this piece in Vanity Fair. If anyone wants to take a look at that, like why I really left and how I found my voice.
Yeah.
Thank you. How I found my voice, only sort of too late. And it's, my own, I call myself out in the piece, my own complicity and my own self-silencing. Anyway, so that was nearly 5 years ago. And I've done a couple things since. I hosted this fun show for Netflix. I started writing the Substack. I've got another book, I Know in My Body. I've been developing other things. I've been helping my partner with, he just shot this amazing movie and I got to be part of that this summer. But something happened. I moved to LA the last 2 years and I just needed to heal. Maybe that's a little LA woo-woo for everyone, but I just needed the way in which I, got drop kicked out of my dream job. Fucking hurt, it hurt. And I needed a minute. And I realized kind of over the holidays, Allison, that I want back in. But what I want is not like I don't need to ever anchor a TV show in my life. Like, what a blessing. I mean, I climbed to the tip top echelon of TV news, to have a show with your name on it for as long as I did. Holy mother, like how blessed and privileged was I? And I earned it. But I want out. I want to be with the people. Like, I want to be a correspondent. I want to cover America. I want to bring the humanity back to news. I feel like that is my superpower in how I talk to people and how I interview, whether it's like a world leader or an auto worker in Warren, Michigan, or someone on the ground there in Minneapolis, or, Liam Ramos's father. Like, these are the people, even Erica Kirk, like, these are the people I want to be able to talk to. I feel like there's white space. It's like you send the correspondence in, you get the TikTok, you get the nuts and bolts of the story, then you get the people on the left and the right, like opining. But
Yeah.
we're missing more of the humanity of people's broader experiences and why they do and say the things that they do. And also just tapping into, in something like this, like when Alex Preddy gets killed in Minneapolis, there's so much that's happening in this country like on a deeper level that I would love to be able to tap into. So I would love to work for a network that would just you know, let me do that. Let me do what I'm good at.
Do you think there's a future for a network, or do you feel like the future is really independent journalism?
I think it's a great question. It depends on what you want to do. Like, I think, for example, Dawn is doing amazing work as an independent journalist. I'm not as political as Dawn is. So that is a perfect lane for Dawn, or like a Jim Acosta and what we see
Mm.
on Substack, or even Jessica Yellen, who used to be our chief White House correspondent many moons ago. I used to have her on my show, and now she's crushing with what she does on Instagram and helping sort of distill what's happening in the news. I am interested in being part of something bigger than me. So I am still, I think part of me is a little old school and wanting to make a network my home. And then from there, being a part of the future of journalism. Like, I don't want the anchor job. I want to help, dream a vision, like have a 60 minutes piece go viral on YouTube. That interests me, and being unleashed in America to do that work.
So I'm curious about this because you have built your reputation on being a compassionate, like you were the mass murder girl. I know that sounds weird, but like you were
I
always
was.
covering these insane mass
I
murders. Your
was.
very last broadcast was covering George Floyd.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about, is there a room for the future of journalism to have the time and space to focus on the humanity when the news is moving at such a breakneck speed? Where I've heard you
Yeah.
talk about, like you saw these human centered stories being crowded out by whatever Trump was saying. It was like sucking all of
Yes.
the air out of
Yes.
anything that mattered, where there was important information that was not
Yeah.
getting to the public because of Trump's circus.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I wrote a piece for The Atlantic. I remember being in Parkland, Florida, when all those kids were murdered, and I was down there. I wanna say it was our second day, doing this broadcast, and the producer got in my ear and was like, "Sorry, Brooke, we've gotta, like, pull away and go to our anchor in Washington to basically take over the show because of something that Trump said." And I had, like, a teacher or someone, a guest waiting in the wings who'd been directly impacted by this mass murder, and I just, like, had this pit in my stomach. I can still feel it. It's still like, oof, I still feel those stories so deeply, which is why I'm the person to be covering, you know, unfortunately, all this tragedy. And because I feel like I have this empathic way about me and how I drop in and talk to folks. And my prayer, and I hope this isn't wishful thinking, but my prayer is that there is a home for someone like me that will allow, like, that longer form reporting on something that matters, not just up here, but down here, you know? to in like our on like a soul level of like a almost like an x-ray of who we are as
Mm.
Americans now. That's what I want to do.
It feels like a perfect recipe for my favorite show, CBS Sunday Morning.
I mean, let's
Hopeful.
name it. Let's
Let's
manifest
name
it.
it. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm so
Yes.
curious. I've
Yes.
heard you talk about being highly sensitive, like deeply, deeply feeling. How did you get into journalism? Because I feel like even as a younger person, I feel like, do you have to have a sense of empathy or not callousness, but like there
Mhm.
is
Thicker skin.
compartmentalized to like move on with it. So how did that come about and how did you square that?
I'm gonna answer that 2 different ways because I don't think I didn't know the word empath until I left CNN, and I
Okay.
realize now that is what enabled me to do those interviews and be was the person that my boss had, I was the girl who was sent to cover all the school shootings and terror attacks and, natural disasters and tragedy, because I know how to meet people where they are with their
Mm.
own where they are in their own nervous systems. I think though as a kid, like I grew up, I was like gonna be an astronaut, then took physics and was like, no. Want to be a journalist, or I wanted to be a gymnast. Then I was like 5'10", and I was like, no. And then I was aware of, Jane Pauley and Katie Couric and
Ugh,
like growing up in the era of
legends.
Oprah. I mean, I was just like, okay, these ladies kind of are cool and they have, these voices. And I always had this literal voice. Like my grandfather was this Presbyterian minister. And I remember in elementary school, we went on a field trip and we were reenacting, something, and my teacher had me be George Washington. And it was like one of those moments when you're a kid where you're like, wait, you want me to play George? But I'm a girl, right? And she was like, it's your voice. We want you to play George. So it's these little moments. And so I ended up, just going to University of North Carolina and I was like, I loved writing. I love writing. So it was like, do I go the screenwriting LA way? And then just like life happens and being from Atlanta and being aware of Ted Turner, like looming so large, when I would go to Braves games and bring binoculars and like look for him and Jane Fonda. And then went to Carolina and, just like one thing leads to another. And I thought I would hide sort of behind the scenes and produce news. And then I had this, these sliding door moments of life where this PhD student who was just like fabulous and like pulled me in the stairwell one day and was like, Brooke, you have a voice, you have an opinion, you have a presence. Like, I mean, you could never get away with this now. He was like, "What are you? A size 8, like a size 6 on a good day?" Like he used to like judge pageants. I was like, Dana Rosengard, like, what are you trying to tell me? And he was just like, why are you operating the studio camera? Why are you hiding? You need to audition to be the student anchor on our little rinky dink, which I thought was the biggest deal at the time, student newscast. And I was like, really? And, I auditioned and I swear to God, Allison, like when I found out I became the anchor of Carolina Week, it was like someone told me I was taking a job at CNN. And
100%.
that was it. Like that's when it began. And I just like jumped on that rocket ship and rode it for 20 years.
Did you get a bug? Did it feel like what did it feel like covering all this wide range of things? Like like I sit around I have a degree in broadcasting, but I anytime I did the news in college, like I could not
Yeah.
do straight news. I could only do satire. Like I'd be great for the Daily Show. If only I was like
Oh,
funny, that would help, but
gosh.
that one was off
That's,
the
yeah.
table. But yeah, like what did it feel like like is there adrenaline? Did you feel like you had a bigger
Mm.
mission that you were serving people? Like what does
Yes.
that feel like?
I think I've always, ever since I was a little girl, knew this. I don't know how this sounds, but I knew I was meant for something significant and not like I'm going to be significant, but I am going to be part of this greater good, this greater thing, and I am going to have a role in that. And so it totally fits that I then become this journalist and I worked my ass off, when all my friends were like living their best lives in like New York City in their 20s, I was like, God bless, like living in West Virginia and eating like bottomless chips and salsa at the Chili's every Friday night and waking up at 2 in the morning to go like dodge deer on I-64 to anchor the news with a guy 3 times my age who would literally like bonk me under the news desk because apparently, like, when the red light went on, like, I wouldn't know to read. You know what I'm saying? So I paid my dues, and then it's adrenaline, but really it's I want to do like, I was raised right. Like, I want to do right by people. I wanna make a difference. And also, hell yeah, like, being able to cover the biggest stories on the planet was extraordinary. It is a rush, and, you never wanna leave. It's like you wanna be first in, and then you don't wanna leave. And I had an incredible run doing exactly that, like, lived my dream.
So I think what I know of you and what I share and am so passionate about, I'm a podcast strategist full time, um,
Mm,
is helping people find their voice to be a force for good. You do that on your
mm,
Substack. When you wrote your Vanity Fair article, it
mm,
really was on your unceremonious exit from CNN and almost exposing the misogyny, what it's like to be a female in a
yeah,
male dominated space. Do you
yeah,
see that that is changing? It feels like
mm.
there is a battle with Trump where it is like the big man kind of thing. Do you feel like um, that we have moved forward? Like, what was that like for you?
I mean, I would have people definitely go read my Vanity Fair piece. It was first for sure. It was like beyond misogyny. It was just like power, and being a corporate bullied and putting up with it. Like, I think what resonated with so many people in the piece wasn't just like the death by 1,000 cuts in broad daylight by just terrible behavior from my bosses and this one producer. It was I put up with it for years. Like, I was like, "Oh my god, I'm so grateful for my job, like, this doesn't feel right, and this isn't right, and this isn't right, but, I mean, I'm so lucky, and, like, I've worked so hard, and, the me from, like, being 23 in West Virginia, like, I can't quit now, I froze my eggs, I dated the wrong guys, I put off having kids, like, I can't like, I just gotta keep going, I'm just gonna put
Mm.
up with this abuse until I didn't anymore until it was like, "Bye," and then, unceremoniously, like, escorted out the side door in the middle of the pandemic in a vacuum and off to, like, live the rest of my life, after this extraordinary career I've had. I did nothing wrong. The only wrong thing I did was not speak up earlier about this behavior. Lesson learned. I think now listen, I'm not on the inside at CNN. I have a very, very dear friend who is a high, high up, a woman, and, but we don't talk as much about, like, I'm just not interested in the tea. I'm just not anymore. But when I look at someone, for example, like when I left, all of the primetime anchors at CNN were dudes. And when you look at the lineup, like this, like representation matters, not to get all like bumper stickery, but when you see Abby Phillip, when you see Caitlin Collins,
Caitlin
girl,
Collins
like
is crushing.
Caitlin Mother
She is crushing.
Collins. She like I don't know how are there 5 of her, she's at the White House. She's the chief White House correspondent, and that's in Washington, and then somehow she gets to New York, and then she's like, knows everything and is just she is in the job. She is doing the thing she was put on this planet to do. I truly believe that. I was not, when you have all the like pushback and the bullet points and you really have to go toe to toe with someone. I'm more like drop me in somewhere horrible and I will pull all the humanity and truth out of a
Wow.
situation and make people feel.
God.
Caitlin is the person who you put in at this time in which we're living. And so for me to see those and Laura Coates, like for me to see it's like gone from all dudes to all these women. And a lot of it matters though, who's running the network, how they're running the network. You can put a bunch of women on screen to be like, look, we're changing. But as if you're not changing the story selection, the editorial, the power dynamic behind the scenes, then you're not going anywhere. But I'm like a glass half full girl despite my experience, and I have to believe it's moving in the right direction.
So, one thing I've heard you say, you said, I gave voice to the voiceless. And the
Mm,
person I didn't speak up enough for was me
was me.
until it was too late.
Yeah.
I think when I think about just pre Me Too in general, there's so many instances. I spent my career in SaaS sales, so in corporate sales. And the amount of misogyny and just that is embedded, the things that you see that are kind of fucked up, but you don't speak up because, of course, you don't. You know,
Yeah.
it almost feels like you're gaslighting yourself. Do you have
Yeah.
grace for do you have grace for,
Yeah.
who you were?
I mean, of course, like, I give flowers to all the versions of women that I am, I did a breathwork, this is so LA, like, but I did a breathwork ceremony, a week ago, and it was so profound, and, like, as we started going in and doing this breathing, all of a sudden, in this space in my mind started populating all these versions of myself from, like, my six-year-old self to my 12-year-old self to my 16 to, like, the young TV Brooke to the Brooke on CNN, and I am so, like, I'm so conscious now of, like, bringing all of those women with me and not shaming any of them, but absolutely giving all of them grace.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I wonder, like, what do you know as a journalist that you wish other people could know?
I'm just gonna answer it on the fly. Like, I think, I'll speak for myself. When I got into journalism, like anything in life, you think you know what you're getting into. You have for me, it was this big, beating, achy heart and, like a quick razor sharp brain and sort of just a goodness. Like you mentioned being a force for good. Like that is my raison d'etre. And like anything, there's office politics, there's discrimination, there's privilege, there's a lot of other factors and it's like, you can have the goods, but there's so many other things at play that like a little bit of magic sometimes. And so I just think like I mean, going let me answer it this way. When I left CNN on the day I left CNN, we were in the middle of the pandemic and I was by myself in my apartment before I had my car pick me up to take me into Hudson Yards. Like I don't know what possessed me to do this, but I wrote this letter to my I don't know, we'll call her 23-year-old self,
Mm,
and essentially I wrote like, "I know you must feel really disappointed in me," because I was really just channeling like that bright-eyed, you know, young journalist who got in it for all the right reasons, and then like the way in which she was getting pushed out would have made no sense to her because we did everything right and we were good and we were talented and we were kind and we were smart and we were effective and we were blah, 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 all the things. And some things you just can't prepare for, and so I would say to any journalist starting out, just like be eyes wide open, keep that big achy, heart, and also just be aware that not everyone is going to be your friend. And watch out for those folks who feel like your friend but aren't really. I mean, there's a lot of sharp elbows in journalism among
mm.
women. And just beware that not everyone wants to huddle. I wrote this book about the like collective power of women. Not everyone wants to play ball and figure out who the people are, who are the good people and create, friendships with them and keep your head down and just work as hard as you possibly can and don't put up with bad behavior. If you feel that whether it's from a woman or a man, that you are being treated in a way and your body always knows. Like I'm such a gut girl. Like if something is happening and maybe you don't say anything the first time, maybe you don't even say anything the second time, but like the third time's the charm, speak up, be on the record, take notes. I would always say to these younger 20-something-year-olds like at CNN who'd all come in my office and I'd give them advice, be like, I'd be like, you should see the notes section of my phone, write it down, keep the receipts. HR is not your enemy. I never went to HR, but there were times when some of these younger women should have and didn't. And you know?
I think
It's a long answer to what you asked, but
no, I think because it's been hard to figure out what do we trust? Who do we trust? If everyone has a mic, how do you know who to trust? And I also have been having these conversations, Brooke, where so many people are saying, like, I can't do politics is not really available. Like, you can't, like, there's just no escape. Politics is doing you, it is
mm,
impacting every corner of the earth. Our synagogues aren't safe. Our schools aren't safe. Our churches aren't safe. Are our homes safe? Who knows? Like, there are politicians. However, I think people are also becoming emboldened that they want to make a difference. So there is that push pull. And I think you especially, like, I'm so deeply interested in truly the unraveling of what you've experienced from an identity perspective of somebody who is
Mm.
listening, thinking, I don't get involved,
Mm.
but also I want to, I don't want to be silent or complicit. I feel like the world is spinning so fast and I know
Yeah.
there's something I can do, but I don't know what it looks like. And I don't know the risk is going to be so big that it's going to blow up everything that I've worked so hard for. You've
Mm.
experienced that, Brooke.
Mm.
Like I'm just help me feel better. Help us feel
Mm.
better. Help us tell us
Gosh.
it's going to be okay.
I was just tearfully sending a dear friend a voice note the other night. Like, I was like, tell me it's going to be okay.
I think we're
I think
all in
like,
that place of like
yeah,
I don't think
yes.
regulation, nervous system regulation, I don't think I don't think it's the goal. I don't think it should be the goal because it feels aspirational when in under a minute you can see a cute cat video, a civilian getting murdered in cold
Yes.
blood by our FBI, a cute, baby being born, an inspirational meme, a mass murder. Like they're just there's so much that I don't think regulation is where we get where we feel better. I feel like it is with each other,
Yeah.
but also the deconstruction of who we are and who we knew ourselves to be. The things
Yeah.
that we tell ourselves of I'm either not political or I am political. I'm a journalist. I'm not a journalist. I am,
Yeah.
you know, Brooke Baldwin, not CNN Brooke Baldwin. Like, how do
Hmm.
we start to unpack that? Or if you just express what it was like for you, if you don't have the answers.
Okay, I'm gonna
Dalai
answer this
Lama.
like all over the place. First of all, I'm so glad you brought up, I was reading this. I love Substack. Ugh, love Substack. It's like substantive and you have to pay to kind of get in, which keeps the crazy people for the most part at bay. And it's not that expensive. But I was reading this piece on Substack yesterday where this woman was making the exact same point you were, Allison. It's like you're on Instagram and it's like cute cat video. Oh, there's Taylor Swift and Travis Kelsey. Oh, there's Alex Preddy getting, shot and killed in Minneapolis. Up, there's another video. Up, there's, it's like, and we're all just in the feed, and she was making this point, I'm still sitting with it, about like none of that is healthy. Should we walk away from social media? Should we give it a break? She was talking about having had a baby recently and she had put her Instagram down and how much healthier she felt as a result. And so I'm just like, so I'm holding that quandary in my right hand. The other piece of it is part of me wants to say, like, we're living in crazy times, but, when you look back at history, I was writing my Substack this past week and thinking so much about Selma and Bloody Sunday in 1965 and what happened on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And if you look at those photos, they're so similar to what we're seeing in Minneapolis. It's just black and white and maybe like, billy clubs and dogs, as opposed to these enormous weapons and Kevlar vests, the very militarized look of ICE. But it's also what I have to, and I've been listening to a lot of Dr. King and listening to his mountaintop speech the night before he was assassinated there in Memphis. And that is helping me because he was talking about, he was like, if God were to have asked me, if I could have been alive at any point in time in the world, like, where would I have loved to have existed? And he was like, right now, in the throes of this like life or death civil rights battle. And, he was like, "I know that," this is roughly what he said, but, "I know that sounds crazy. Like, it is a mess right now. The world is a mess. And this is a time of deep trouble, but this is the moment where, in the darkness, we see the stars."
Mm.
Rough translation of what he
Mhm.
said. And that just like sitting with Dr. King's words, and really it's worth like listening to the timbre in his voice and hearing the crowd and remembering that, okay, like that too, that was the 60s. Here we are in 2026. Like, there are heroes among us. There are heroes among us that are just what I call ordinary, extraordinary people,
Hmm.
right? And this is what gives me hope. So it's like we can sit and watch all the angles of the Alex Preddy shooting death, and be aware of that and read from multiple outlets to try to get like, all right, the New York Times is saying it this way, the Star Tribune is saying it this way, the Wall Street Journal is saying it this way. I want to check out all of them, and also like leaning on our friends. You ask, like, how do we know what's truth?
Yes.
How do we know what's truth? Like, what is truth now? I feel like we're not all speaking the same language. There's like, I was watching Josh Johnson. You mentioned The Daily Show. I think he is crisp and clean and brilliant, this guy. And he was talking about how, like, one side is speaking the language of law and order, and one side is speaking the side of morality. And when you do this, we're not going to find that. We're not going to find solutions. We're not going to find the common ground because one side believes this is the truth and the other side says this is the truth. And so the truth truly, like cliche, I am the beholder. And I think since I'm on this side still, I'm a journalist forever, but I think like it's up to what an incredible time that we're in where we have the power as an American citizen to like figure out what do I think, what do I believe. It's on me to read and see not just traditional news networks anymore, but there is some insanely beautiful journalism being done by folks on TikTok, I never thought I would say that, but it is. It's true. There's beautiful journalism being done on YouTube, and we're doing it. We, the people, are doing it. And so that's empowering, I think.
You feel the power in the uprising.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I do. Like, the landscape in journalism is shifting. The power is changing. And I want everyone listening, or watching to just be like, you can be a journalist. Like, we have to be media literate. You can't just go out and riff on facts. I'm air quoting, but it's kind of an incredible time to be alive right now. It's depressing and horrifying and amazing. And that's where I'd land on that.
I think there's an exhilaration in finding the point of views. Like I did a breakdown where I was studying where people are getting the news, and it is more and more in these explainer videos and independent journalists, and even just to see Don Lemon, Joy Reid, Aaron Parnas, people that are really crushing it, Mo News.
Yes.
They are just doing the hard work by themselves and crowdfunding it, and trying to keep the peace. And so it is like, I love the I've Had It girls. Like, I just think they
oh my
are.
gosh. Yes,
I'm going to see that they're performing in they're doing a live show in Atlanta tomorrow, and I have tickets, so I can't wait to go see
wow.
them.
Wow.
I just think they are speaking a language that, even though you may not think of those words, but having them like put language to how we feel and validate it and have solutions is really, really helpful. I wonder, when you watch the news, do you put on like CNN? Do you like shout at it like somebody would a football game or the Super Bowl? Like, what do you do? How do you consume
Girl,
the
I
news?
don't. I'm not watching the news.
Okay.
I'm not watching the news. Like, I'm reading my news. I am scanning social media for various viewpoints. I will go to CNN.com to watch clips, but like, am I sitting? I don't own a television. I haven't owned a television in 10 years.
Wow.
I shouldn't say this, but I haven't owned a television in 10 years, even when I was on television. I just use my laptop. I use my computer to watch. When something is huge enough, when Ukraine happened or Middle East, like I'm listening. Like, I still have the phone number to the CNN control room, so I'll just like dial in and piggyback off of, air. I'll listen to CNN air, but my news habits have just like profoundly changed.
Do you feel like it is a self-protection, self-preservation thing? Do you feel like it's been enough? or do you find yourself seeking out the news or shutting it out?
I definitely seek out the new like, I wanna be informed. I wanna be an informed human, but some days, I'll be honest, like, I listen to my nervous system, and if my nervous system is overcooked, that is not a day that I'm gonna click on the
Totally.
articles coming out of Washington. Like,
Right.
I'm gonna go find the modern love section of the New York Times and, like,
Uh-huh.
fill my soul, like but I for sure, I do, of course. Like, I feel like we need to be informed as humans to then have opinions and just know what's going on. But, like, my partner would sit in bed at night at 10 p.m. and then open his phone because it would be his first time in the day to like read the news. And I'm like, I'm like, I can't even, I'm so triggered by at night being in bed in a safe, sacred space and having like, even just seeing him read the news
Uh-huh.
at night in bed triggers me, activates me, and part of that probably has to do with my previous life, having to be on
Oh,
my
I
phone
feel the same
24/7,
way.
365.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I
I
feel
just
the same
can't.
way, and I don't have your background.
There are, like, certain safe spaces in the day where I'm like, "Okay, I'm ready. I'm gonna open this," I'm gonna open the New York Times app. I'm gonna
Wow.
open the Wall Street I'm gonna look at my Axios email.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's it. It's not like, all the time at
It's
all.
so interesting that, Aaron Parnas, I've had it, like the iHip News, the Midas Touch, that they are
Yeah.
releasing podcast episodes all day long. And it's interesting that something that came out like Don Lemon, I think he was arrested at like 5 a.m. Eastern, whatever time it was.
Okay.
Um, he's probably out by now. I mean, who knows? Like it,
Yeah.
it is old news by the time you get to the afternoon to the evening. The breaking news
Right.
cycle is there. I want to get back to you. There's something that you said. You said, I miss being a vessel for information and clarity and
Mm.
news, the good and the bad. I miss my
Yeah.
audience, but I'm experiencing a rebirth. As with a forest fire, you can burn out the debris and foster new growth. I know
Mm.
that you've done the Hoffman Institute. I totally
Mm.
wanted to talk to you about that offline because I'm so interested. I'm interested in your breath work.
Totally.
What
Yeah.
does that rebirth look like for you?
Mm. Um, I would say as I told Oprah on her podcast recently,
Yes, queen,
the
drop
the
that name.
the rebirth, I mean,
I
like,
would be
fuck,
dropping it to everybody,
Uh,
people in the grocery
I
store.
what
I
I
don't give a
said to
fuck.
her was, "I feel like I have come home to myself." And let me tell you what that means. By the way, later in the show, she was like, "Just like Brooke said, like, I too came home to myself." I was like,
We're the
"Life
same.
complete, like, I'm done." Um, no, what I mean is I think that we are, we're born, we are young, beautiful, impressionable children. We are wide awake to everything. And then I think like we grow up and there's like the muck and the mud that starts covering over our inner essence, like societal expectations, the patriarchy, fill in the blank, whatever. We want to conform. We want to, like, I'm a recovering good girl from the South. What has happened for me is in taking this time away from the hamster wheel, we'll call it, of news. I have been able to, through going to the Hoffman Institute, through doing EMDR therapy, through
Mm.
just like,
Can you explain what a Hoffman Institute is?
the Hoffman Institute is a place in Northern California. I'd never heard of it until I had two friends in a matter of a week be like, bro, they knew where I was in a lot of places in my life. They were like, Brooke, have you ever heard of this place? And I was like, no. But then I trusted these two people and I signed up. And it's basically like I've heard somebody refer to it as like 10 or 20 years of therapy in 7 days.
Mm.
It is the kind of place that you hand over your cell phone when you walk in. There's no electronics, no books, no magazines, no exercise, no a lot of things. They want to keep you, present in the work. And for 7 days, they take you on this ride very intentionally through a lot of writing exercises. You do a lot of homework before you even enter those front gates. And it's a lot about it starts with the patterns that you learn from whoever raised you, your parents, your grandparents, your step parents, and identifying those patterns in your current life. And then there's a lot of like forgiveness and compassion. And they talk a lot about right road and left road, left being like living an ego driven life, and right living a more doesn't have to be faith-based as in, like, God, but just more of a spiritual centered path, and it's profound, and it changed my life for sure,
Mm.
and I would recommend it to anyone who's ready. I don't recommend it to everyone,
Who would it not
because your
be
life
for?
if you've never done talk therapy, if you are not aware, if you don't have an inner life, I would say like maybe start baby step into it before you do that. But if you, use emotionally intelligent language and are aware, have a real sense of like you're self-aware, and also are willing to call yourself out on what is okay and maybe not healthy in your life and have this awareness of, all right, like I need to do some self-excavation in these
Mm.
places. Then I would say check it out, the Hoffman Institute.
I would do it in a heartbeat. And as far as like, what's been your favorite surprise that you learned through this rebirth? Like maybe something that you discovered that you had no idea is now an
Mm.
access point for joy for you.
Wow, that's a great question. I mean, gosh, I've learned so much. Hold on. Uh, I mean, I really have, like, I grew up going to church. I've always believed in a higher power, but between the Hoffman Institute and just a few other things, I really have a faith practice, whether it's, your higher power or God or you're just really the highest version of yourself. Like what I have gotten through this whole thing is I hear this voice. Like Liz Gilbert talks a lot about this, but I hear a voice too. When I get really still, they say, prayer is talking to God and meditating is listening. And I really
Mm.
do now hear a voice that I could call God, but I also call me like the highest version of myself. At Hoffman, they call it your spiritual self. And when you get really still, when you can really quiet the noise and get really still, that's when, like, in all these moments that we're experiencing externally and also internally, like, that's when I listen, I ask, I get answers, and I get really clear on things. And that enables me to be brave as many days as I possibly can.
What a gift. I think because there is so much noise, and I'm speaking really for myself because I have a
Yeah,
listening problem. I don't have a talking problem. I have a listening problem that
I don't believe that. I don't believe that.
I'm trying to work on it. Of like asking the universe, asking God, and I'm like, he never answers when I keep asking, and it's like, slow down, bitch. You
Yeah,
need to listen
you gotta
better.
get still. You gotta get
Yeah, I
still.
think there's a beauty in it, but I love what you're saying. How do people get in touch with you? I know I have been loving
Mm,
your Substack. It's called Unraveling. It couldn't be better titled for the
mm,
unravelers and unravelers to be. How do people get in
thank
touch
you.
with you, Brooke?
Yeah,
Or maybe they
yeah, the
want to give
best
you a
way.
show on 60 Minutes
Oh my
or
gosh.
CBS Sunday
I
Morning
mean,
since we manifested
speak it
it.
out loud, Allison, speak
Yes,
it out
queen.
loud. Yeah,
Take me with you. I'll be your assistant.
I yes. Okay, deal. You heard it here first.
That's right.
No, the easiest way is you can find me on Instagram. I'm just Brooke Baldwin, Brooke_Baldwin. You can find me on Substack. It's Unraveling with Brooke. .substack.com. And I love, like, I am in deep conversation with so many people I don't know, but who I feel like I know, like in my soul, who have had similar unraveling experiences. And if you don't know what I mean when I say unraveling, I gave this TED talk last summer, which you can find on the internet also, where, unraveling, a lot of people think it's a bad thing, like it's a coming apart, but actually it's where we actually come together after we come apart to, destruction leads to creation, right? It's like where we find the truth, where we find that core essence that I was alluding to. Like, after all, we can peel all the muck and the mud and the societal expectations away. And when we come home to ourselves, that is the goal of unraveling. And so in my Substack, I literally write about everything from, what's happening in America to sex and Gen X to how my marriage went kaboom and why. I wrote very vulnerably about that at the end of the year, and I was number one on Substack under health and wellness. So I
Wow.
appreciated all my readership on that one. That was a
Yes.
doozy. Just everything. I'm not afraid of writing anything anymore. And so I hope you find me there.
I want to thank you for having your heart so open
Mm,
and sharing so vulnerably because it is so relatable and giving us a language or a space to know that we are seen and heard. I think the next frontier, other than sharing each other's work and consuming each other's work, is to truly connect with each other. I think that even the inconvenience of like actually getting to know people deeper is going to
yeah.
be how we hold tight because it's not
Yes.
just like, I need to get better myself. I need to get better with others. And I am so grateful for your
Mm,
invitation for people to connect with you and for being so open and for being so open on this show. I've been hunting you down for a little while. So I'm really grateful to have this conversation because I think
mm,
your voice really matters, and your voice in this
mm.
moment is really important, and we're grateful to hear it.
I am so grateful. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for the invite. Thank you for your beautiful questions. Thank you for seeing me, Allison. I see you right back.
Oh, thank you, Brooke.